And we're on the same team.
All right, we're gonna get started. So thanks for being here. I'm excited to have you guys here. I apologize that I sent out, although I probably don't need to apologize to you guys, but I didn't send out the email reminder till way late last night. So, but that's why I say I don't need to apologize to you guys because you obviously got it and we're here. It's the people who didn't look at it that aren't here I should apologize to, right? But anyway, so we're gonna talk about business planning, but before that, Crystal, you want to go first?
I go first. Hi, everybody. Hello. So today I have like a quick news brief I thought was interesting this month. So it talks about both residential and commercial news that came out in May. So it's a month behind. A couple things I found very interesting were the cash sales increased 25%.
Wow.
So we're cash buyers. And then the investors market changed too. So the first quarter of the year, 1 of every 7 homes bought in the US were bought by an investor, and the 3 prior quarters were 1 of every 10 homes. So it's like kind of an interesting shift there too. And then on commercial side, with COVID and people changing office spaces, I anticipate, commercial kind of going on a downhill, where actually they're saying that there's gonna be an uptick in commercial property this year for the rest of the year. So some interesting things. I'll send it over to Russ PDF. So for those of you online, you guys can see it. But I don't really have much, like always. We're always here for you at North Star, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, cool.
I'll send those pictures.
Have at it, G.
Okay, it's me again. Any jazz fans?
Oh, yeah.
All right, hey, we're moving on.
We are.
That's exciting. That was fun. That was an awesome game. If they can play like that throughout the playoffs, they could go far.
Yeah.
It's cool. That was a good game. So mortgage rates are still the same from yesterday to today. They're about the same. Lingering about that 3%. I just quickly wanted to talk to you about down payments. I'll go fast. Russ, I'll be quick. Down payments. Okay, so if you have a borrower that wants to buy a home and they want to do a conventional loan, conventional loans do have a 3% down program. Now on that 3% down program, there are some income restrictions. So if they make too much money, they can't put 3% down and they have to put 5% down. So that's kind of the standard, 5%, and then if they have more, great. FHA requires 3.5% down. So we look at conventional and FHA and we just look at the client, we look at their credit, we look at their situation, and we try to determine which loan is best for them. We typically try to go conventional first because the mortgage insurance on a conventional loan can fall off eventually once they pay their loan down or the home appreciates in value. So, if we can do a conventional loan, we will. If not, FHA loans are great. So we just look at that closely. So 3.5% down on FHA, 3% if they make less than like $90,000 a year. And then if not conventional, you have to put 5% down.
Oh, so it's 90 or below your income.
On that 3% down conventional, yes. So just wanted to touch on that. VA, if you have any veterans you're working with, they can get financed 100% with 0 down. That's an awesome program. And then if you have someone that's looking way out in the, I hate to say it, the sticks, I don't know what, out in the farmland communities, the rural communities, they have also a 0 down program, which is awesome. So anyways, have an awesome sunny summer day. Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, we have Alex in person. This is awesome. Well, so today we're going to talk about business planning. So I sent out an email with the business plan in it, but for you guys that are online, actually, I probably should have done that while he was talking. I'll upload it in case you didn't happen to get it.
Did you have it yesterday, the open house?
So I'll put it into the chat box. If you're on your phone, I don't think you'll be able to see it. Rest you should. Okay. So we're going to talk about the business plan, but before we get into the business plan, here's the idea of today. The idea of today is more to get you started on the business plan. We're not going to get all the way through it. It would take too long to go all the way through it today, but I want to get you started on it so that you can get that done. Now, before we get into filling it out though, there's a few other pieces that I want to cover with you guys to make sure you're aware of and things before we jump too much into that. So let me get the screen share going here on my whiteboard and make this to where you guys can see it here. All right, so here's where we're going to start with is I want to start by just talking with you about a concept that was in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Have any of you guys read Rich Dad Poor Dad? Okay, good. So you'll be able to help me then, hopefully. What?
I started listening
It's
to
a
it.
while
I
ago,
didn't get all the
though.
way through.
Not
I
through.
started listening to something else.
Okay, that's good. So so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So hopefully you'll be able to help me through it. If not, that's okay. I'll help you through it if you don't remember that. But he talks about a concept in there that I think is important for us to understand as we get into doing our business plan. And that is this. So he calls it the cash flow quadrant. Do you remember anything about that from reading the book? And it's okay if you don't. So that's fine. So here's what he said. Is in the book, he says basically most of the time where people are going to start is we are going to start doing or start our work as an employee. So the first section of this cash flow quadrant is the employee section. So the first thing that most people will do is they will become an employee is as far as their work goes. That's what most people will do is they become an employee. Now, it's interesting of that, like if you go back in time, a lot of times people just like they have their own farm or whatever. Like, so in essence, they have their own business. Now they would hire people to come and help them and things like that, which is obvious, but employees where he said we typically are going to start in terms of our career type of a thing, okay, which is okay and it's a good place to start. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, part of what got me to come into real estate was I was working at a bank, being an employee, and I didn't like the fact that it really didn't matter how hard I worked versus one of my coworkers worked. I mean, now to some extent it does matter, but it didn't matter a whole lot that they could kind of just barely get by and I could go and work really hard that day. And at the end of the day, we all got paid the same amount of money. Well, so for me, I got frustrated with that. And so I wanted to go to the next level, which in this cash flow quadrant, what Robert Kiyosaki talks about is what we would call self-employed. Now, what is the difference between being an employee and being self-employed?
Well, you're the boss, self-employed.
Okay, good.
You're not when you're an employee.
Yeah, good. That's exactly right. As an employee, you're told when to show up to work. You're told how long you're going to work and how much they're going to pay you and what you're going to do while you're there and all that. Versus on the self-employed, I can decide what I want to do and to some extent control the income a little bit, meaning like you could just go get more jobs or whatever. So that's what he said. Typically, that's the next area that people will go to is they'll go from being an employee to being self-employed. And that for me is what brought me into real estate was like, I was thinking, I want to go do a job that the harder I work, the more money I'm going to make, which is why I came and started into real estate. Well, part of the problem that people have in real estate, in fact, let me even say it this way. 13 out of 14 people who get their real estate license nationwide will be gone within 2 years. So 13 out of 14 that get their real estate license won't be practicing real estate 2 years later. Now, why?
Well, I think it's harder to be self-employed.
Okay, good.
And maybe they're frustrated or,
Not disciplined enough, and they're not consistent.
yeah.
Perfect. That all of those things, right on, is that typically that's what's going to contribute it to it is that they don't have the discipline and they don't have the direction. They're not a good self-employed person, I guess, I don't know, whatever. 13 out of 14 people though are going to fail and be gone. Well, part of what I would say of why I think that happens, part of the thing that creates that is because they are looking at it as being self-employed. And they're treating themselves as a self-employed type of a thing. And as a result, meaning, here's what I mean by that. Has anybody told you guys, or not told, called you, if you didn't show up to the office, has anybody called you to say, hey, why aren't you here?
I actually had somebody text me and they're like, why didn't you come to role play? And I was like.
Well, but was it another agent or was it a staff person?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, so that, my point being though is, has any of the staff leadership, if you didn't show up, called you and said, why aren't you here? Well, so because of that, and because people are self-employed and they're like, well, if I don't want to work, I don't have to work. And so that's part of why 13 out of 14 will fail. Well, so now what about the 1 out of 14? Well, so that leads to then the next phase of this. In this cash flow quadrant, the Robert Kiyosaki, what he called a business owner. I'm trying to do better on my handwriting today for you guys on my iPad. It's a little better. All right, so business owner. So what's the difference? Oh, by the way, for you guys on Zoom, if you haven't put in the chat box, put your name in there and things, please do. Okay, so what is the difference between being a self-employed person and being a business owner? When you guys hear that, what do you think the difference is? And I'm always curious because typically the first thing you're going to say is normally the first thing people say, which is fine. It's just interesting that that's how we tend to think. So what comes to mind when you think of business owner versus self-employed? What is the difference?
You hire people as a business owner?
That is almost every single time I teach this class and I ask that question, that's what is said, is you have employees, which is fine. It's just, for me, it's interesting that that's how we, because I would have said the same thing. Collectively, that's how we think, is the difference between being self-employed and a business owner is that we have employees. Now, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. What the person who is the business owner, are they an employee? Yeah. Kind of a trick question. But
Well, they could be
They could
paid
be.
on the payroll.
yeah, so, and that's why I'd say it's kind of a trick. If they're smart, then yes, they are.
They're on the payroll.
But really, at the end of the day, they're self-employed, right?
Yeah.
The business owner typically really is self-employed. So why would we have a distinction between being self-employed versus a business owner here? And a lot of times, like I said, people will tend to say they hire employees. Why do we assume that a business owner is going to hire employees?
So he doesn't have to work.
Let me rephrase that. I didn't ask that very well. Why do we assume they need to hire employees? That's probably the better question. Why do we assume that a business owner needs to hire employees?
So they can focus on the things that's gonna get them more business.
Okay, good. I like that.
He can run the business, yeah. I don't know.
Okay,
Or managing the business as a
Good.
business owner.
okay,
I
good.
think.
Yeah, so love what you guys are saying. I'm gonna put it in like an envelope because you're kind of all saying the same thing, same concept of where I'm trying to go with this, and that is this. Typically, the reason we assume that a business owner has employees is because we assume a business owner is successful. When you think about, and what I mean by that is we tend to think of business owners as, well, they've got enough going and they need to have more things going. So versus, give me an example of a, and I don't need like exact people's names, but a type of business or whatever, profession, or I don't know, trying to think of another word, but of someone who's self-employed. Think of people that you would think about, and like I say, don't tell me their name, but like what do they do that when you think of self-employed people, someone you know?
Photography, lawn.
Okay, good. Photography, lawn care,
Hairstylist,
hairstylists, mechanics.
Computer software. company, I don't know. It just popped.
As
in
a
my
self-employed,
head.
okay. That one's, okay.
Just
Fixing
popped in my head.
laptops. Yeah, like there's people that do IT from like their garage.
Yeah, sure. No, there are.
Yeah.
There are,
From
sure.
their garage.
Fixing
Or
the phones.
website builders or.
Okay, good.
Extent.
Plumbers, like notice, but if you think about those people in general, now obviously there's going to be exceptions. And part of, I would say, the exception to what I'm going to say is because they don't think of themselves as self-employed. They think of it as a business owner. For me, the people that I know that if you asked me, are they a business owner? Are they self-employed? The ones that I would put into the box of self-employed are also, if you stop and think about this, they're also the people who aren't making a ton of money. Like they get by. And I don't know, you guys tell me, would you agree or disagree with
I
that?
would agree with that.
For the most part, when I think about people that I know, that like when you're saying somebody programming out of their garage or something, like they're probably not making a ton of money.
Yeah.
Like,
They're starting up, you know.
well, now, and that's fine, like,
They
I'm,
can't
that's
afford
just
an
it.
office, they're-
Yeah, and I'm
they're
not trying to beat
yeah,
anybody up,
yeah.
like, I'm not trying to beat anybody up, but my guess would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my guess would be, when you said photographer, you know somebody who fits into that category. My guess is they don't have employees, or it maybe, if not more than one, maybe two.
No, she actually has a lot of
Okay, good, so maybe, okay, then, good, so maybe that doesn't apply to.
She's the
But
exception.
yeah, so but when I think about though, the people typically that I would identify as self-employed is they kind of just do their thing and fit into the category of really, when I said the word self-employed, that's probably kind of what you're picturing in your mind. So here's the point of this, the whole point of everything we're saying right here. From today on, do not think of yourself as being self-employed. Okay, so from today forward, I want you guys thinking of yourself here. Oops, oh, that was bad.
Oh my god.
Thank goodness for undo, right? I want you to start thinking of yourself as a business owner, not as self-employed. So don't think about you as being a self-employed person. From today forward, and why I say that is, for me, when I came into real estate, when I first started, I was, hey, I'm self-employed. Yeah, I'm self-employed. Now, I don't want to think self-employed. I want to think business owner. Now, why do you think it is that what is it that makes the people that we would think of as a business owner? Why do we assume they're successful? Meaning, and what I mean by that is, what are some of the things that they do differently than the people we would put in the self-employed box?
They brand their car with their name or whatever, you know.
Okay.
have systems in place.
Okay, good. I like that. They have systems in place for sure. So stop and think about like a Chick-fil-A out here, like the Chick-fil-A, they've got systems in place. They know like, this is what we do. They've identified it. Good. What else would you say?
Marketing, branding.
Okay, good. I like that.
Well, and also they're good with money. They can take their money and they can manage it,
Okay, good.
grow.
We're gonna go there next. So I'm not gonna
Jumping
say,
ahead of it.
no, you're good. Yeah, that's right where we're headed. So I'm just not ready to go just yet, but
Just
good.
yet.
But that's where we're headed. So good. What else though?
The way they show up every day.
The way they show up every day. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks.
Schedule, they follow schedule.
Okay, good. That's another piece of it so remember, part of what I'm saying here is I don't want you, see, for me, the self-employed person doesn't have that. They kind of just, well, let me see what I got that I have to do today. Versus the business owners, like, our business is open from this time to this time, and this is what we're gonna do during that time, and what it's gonna look like. That's what I'm saying is I want you guys thinking that way. So good. What about this? Let's say that let's look at, since your phone went off, you're pinging it, Apple, okay? Let's think about Apple. Tim Cook's the CEO, I think, right? I think that's his name.
I think so.
Sounds good.
The
Doesn't matter.
Tesla guy or something.
Yeah, we could do that too. Let's say that I'm Tim Cook from Apple, okay? You guys are the board of directors. And we show up to our annual meeting, and as the board of directors, you're expecting me to give you a report on what's gone on. And I show up and I go, okay, guys, here's what we did. This last year, we came out with this new iPad, and we also got the new iPhone and a new watch and a blah, 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 blah. And you guys go, okay, that's great. You know, what you did last year, who cares? Like, what are you gonna do this year? And I say to you, well, we're just gonna kind of see. Like, I mean, well, we'd like to come up with a new like MacBook, we've even kicked around the idea of a new iPhone, a new, better one. But I don't know. I mean, we're gonna try. We'll see.
We had a good year last year, so.
Yeah, we had a
close.
good, yeah, that's,
It's gonna
look at how
run
much,
out.
yeah, that's probably, I'm gonna start using
Yeah.
that. Look how much money we've made last year. We don't have to
We don't
worry
need to
so
do
much.
that.
We don't need to
Good.
worry too much about it this year. You guys are the board of directors. What are you gonna do?
So we're gonna find somebody new.
Yeah, you're gonna do the old Donald Trump, you're fired, right?
Yeah.
So you're,
Find a new CEO.
that's right. So I just lost my job, right? So what, like, for real, if you were the board of directors and I'm Tim Cook, the CEO, what are you expecting me to show up to that meeting and present to you?
Some passion, results,
A
that you care.
presentation of what's they're gonna achieve,
Expectations.
what goals.
Yeah, basically, and how are we gonna get
How
there?
are we
Here's
gonna
what we're
do it?
gonna do. Here's how we're gonna get there. So here's the difference. Ultimately, here's where I've been trying to get you guys to, is the difference between a business owner and self-employed is the business owner has a plan. They put together they have a plan and a schedule. So not only, here's what I would say.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've ever said it this way, but I think this is probably the best way of saying it. A self-employed person sets goals. They will set goals. My goal is I want to do X amount of dollars. The difference between that and a business owner is the business owner actually puts together a plan. Like, stop and think about it. If you were to go to a bank today and you were to say to the bank, I want to start a new business making whatever, and I need money, guess what they're going to ask you to present to them?
Business plan.
A business plan. Show us what your business plan is. See, to stop and look at it from the standpoint of people who have money. So, or the people who are smart with money, that's maybe the better way of saying it. They want to get a return on that money, and they'll lend it out to people to get a return on that money. But they also want to know that you have a plan in place that's going to get the return on the money. See, so I'm hammering on this because I really want you guys to see from today forward, you're not self-employed. You're a business owner. As a business owner, you got to have a plan. And we need to have a schedule in place as well for that. So we'll talk about the schedule as well before we jump into the actual business plan here. But that's the difference. See, in this cash flow quadrant, typically people go from being an employee to self-employed. Now, in his book, the self-employed type is usually some type of a network marketing thing. So that's usually kind of where he's saying that they go. And from there, to get the experience of being an entrepreneur, to then set up and become a business owner. So I want you guys from today forward, you're a business owner, you're not self-employed. Think of it that way. The difference between the two is the business owner has a plan. They know and they have a schedule that they follow. That's how I want you guys to think about it. All right, so now let's talk about the fourth area, which is where Joan was headed to, is the fourth area is what he calls an investor. What's the difference between being an investor and being a business owner?
Investors have their money just work for them instead of other people.
Perfect. That's excellent. That's exactly right. Think of it as the business owner we talked about goes and gets
Yeah.
employees to go, like, think of it this way even. I read something the other day that said, you're either building your dream or someone is paying you to build theirs. Like, think of it that way. As an employee, what's going on is you are being paid to help somebody else build their dream is kind of what it is. So where do you want to be in that? Do you want to be building your own dream, or do you want to have somebody paying you to build theirs? Okay. So here's what I'm saying. I want you guys to think on this side of the column over here on the right side here. I want you thinking, I'm like, it's right side for me, but yeah, it's still right. So I want you thinking on the right side of the column of ultimately think of yourself as a business owner, with the idea being that we are going to become the investor. Okay. So you have embarked on, or have been in, whichever case you fit in. If you're new, you've embarked on. If you've been in the business, you're in it. But one of the areas that you can generate the greatest amount of wealth. Now, before I came into real estate, part of what got me into real estate was I have an uncle that's a builder. And one day I was talking to my brother-in-law about my uncle and how wealthy he is. He's got a lot of money. And we were just talking about it, and my brother-in-law said to me the one day, you know, I'll bet if he lost all of his money, no, actually, that's not how he said it. Here's what he said. It seems like everything he touches just turns to gold. And I was like, yeah, you're right. He's like had 3 different businesses that he's run. And he was on his 3rd one. Had sold off the other 2. He would get them going, then he'd sell them off.
Yeah.
And he was on his 3rd. And I said, yeah, that's a good point. So I went to that uncle one day and I said, hey, so just hypothetically speaking, if you were to lose all of your money and you had to do something to try to get it back, what would you do? And it was interesting because you could tell it had never even crossed his mind. And he was like, huh, I don't know. Like more so, I think he was more perplexed by the fact of how he was going to lose the money. Like, honestly, when I said it, I'm like, imagine you lost all your money. What would you do to get it back? And he was like, huh, like, it was almost like I never even considered that I could lose my money, which was an interesting lesson for me.
Yeah.
But here's what he said. After he thought for a second, he said, you know, I don't know exactly what I would do, but it would have something to do with real estate. And so I was like, oh, okay. So that's why I say for you guys, you've embarked on, or you are in one of the areas that probably generates the most amount of wealth for people in the US is through real estate. So congratulations, but here's the key. I've also known a ton of agents who are come through this, the majority agents go through the business and they're never able to retire because they never do anything to move into being that investor. So I want you also from today forward to start thinking about ultimately you're the business owner, but that you want to become the investor. So we're going to talk about how do we do that? How do we get that to take place? Now, we have an agent here in this office by the name of Phil Harvey. And I don't know if any of you have known or met him yet, but I love talking about Phil because he had actually started to get his real estate business going and was doing pretty well when 2008, 2009 hit, and then he lost everything. After that, since that time, he has created now to the point where he falls into the category of what, whoops, I'm doing the erase again here. He falls now into this category of being the investor. What he did actually 2 years ago, might have been 3 now, within the last 2 to 3 years, though he had built it up to, oh, we're reading your comment there, Isaac. Phil's the one who, what did it say?
He's a stud.
Yeah, he is a stud. That's exactly it.
Who is
Phil
this
is-
Phil?
Oh, yeah, Phil. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks, Isaac.
You know who he is. I don't think I know who Phil is.
Well, so here's the thing, since 2010 till now, so over basically an 11-year period, he went from basically to, and I may be exaggerating it a little bit, this side of it, of like that he lost everything, but he has built it to now where what happened was 2-3 years ago, and it probably was 3 years ago now, actually. He decided that he was going to go buy a motorhome. So he bought like one that's like the bus, like a humongous one. He bought one of those. He pulled his kids out of school, and for a year they drove and just went and saw the United States. Well, the reason he's able to do that was because he has gone from being the business owner into this investor category. Where, and I don't know what the number is today for him, but he had gotten it at that point, his passive cash flow from properties that he owns, because what he will do is he will go buy properties, either fix them up and sell them, or he buys them, fixes up, and then keeps them as an investment property. Well, his passive income from that was somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 a month that just was coming in off of rents from these properties, which allowed him to say, okay, I'm going to go take my family and go, this doesn't sound fun to me, by the way, but a year in a motorhome.
Yeah.
And maybe Isaac, maybe, yes, he has kids, and they were young too.
Yeah.
So Isaac, I don't, if you know, he's either got 4 or 5 kids. I don't know, I don't remember. Maybe Isaac will tell us, but 4 or 5 kids, and they were fairly young when he did this. But here's the point. He approached it from the standpoint of he treated it as a business owner that then he used that income, the money that came from that, to build, to become into this investor category. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. Think about what has happened to our home prices over the last, well, 6 months, but if we just said year or 2 or 4 years, if he had, and I don't know how much he has, but let's say he had $2 million worth of real estate. Over the last couple of years, he's now probably has $4 or $5 million worth of real estate because he has gone into this investor category. So that's what I want you guys thinking is, you tell me if Isaac responds.
I'll tell
He
you.
must not know, so here's the thing is, I want you to start to get to that. So how are we going to do that? Well, the reason we're having all of this discussion is because we're now going to get
Wow,
into the
5
business.
kids.
one. Yeah, so imagine that,
You're right.
motorhome,
I
5
can't.
kids, and I want to say the youngest was like 2 or something.
I wanted to scream.
Go ahead.
That's crazy.
Oh, no, I was just saying.
Oh, you were pointing that, okay. Yeah, 5 kids, so
Wow.
doesn't that sound fun? Now, here's the good news though, is at some point they ended up in Florida and then went on a cruise for, like a month. I don't know how long. They went on a few cruises. but-
That still is pretty, you got.
No, I know,
I mean,
that's- well, maybe that-
togetherness.
Maybe that was the point of the motorhome, was to prepare to the closeness of the cruise. I'm just kidding. All right, so how do we do it? That's what we're gonna talk about now. So here's the thing. So I had asked you guys in class on Tuesday to start to think about and gather some information of like, how much did you need on a monthly basis kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so now is when we're gonna jump in and use some of that. So here's the thing. Now this piece, so we've been talking about this cash flow quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki, which by the way, after that book, he's now added a 5th area, which makes it, I guess, a cash flow pentagon, not a quadrant, but we'll stick with cash flow quadrant. But he's added a 5th area of, after the investor, is to become a philanthropist, basically. Is ultimately, it's like, okay, now I've got so much money that I don't know what to do with it. I'm going to start to give it away, kind of a thing, would be the next step in this. But we're just going to focus on business owner and investor. Okay, so how do I move now? Because from today forward, you're the business owner, right? And we're going to start thinking like the investor. And so here's how we do that. So this piece, the next piece we're going to talk about, comes out of the book that was called, it's by Og Mandino, The Richest Man in Babylon. Anybody read that one? Okay, good. So this concept we're going to talk about comes out of that. And here's what he said in that book. Basically, as you go through, and we're going to start talking about setting a goal for you in terms of your income. What he said in that is you should learn to live off of 70% of your income. Now, that's going to be a little different for us because we're in a position where we're out selling real estate and we don't have a set salary kind of a thing. But ultimately what he's saying is, if you could learn to live off of 70% of your income, you can become very wealthy very quickly. Now, quickly is somewhat relative, I would say, but meaning that it's going to take some time. But I would also say, like, we tend to think, when we do goal setting, we tend to exaggerate what we could do in a year. We tend to think bigger in a year than what we could do. But if we look over 10 years, we tend to undersell ourselves. So like in terms of goal setting and who we can become and what we could do income wise, a lot of times we'll set a goal too big for what we want in the next year. But if we looked at 10 years, we put it way too small, because you can accomplish so much more with that. So that's where I'm saying is it ultimately, just like with Bill Harvey, what we were talking about, over a 10-year period, he went from essentially nothing to he's probably closer to 30,000 a month now than he was 25. Like, I don't really know that. I'll have to ask him. But I would guess that he's increased that dramatically over the time. And his net worth has gone up dramatically over that 10-year period too. So kind of just take that, think of it that way when I'm saying it can happen quickly, is it may not happen in the next year, but could happen within 10 years, okay? All right, so 70% of your income should be used towards paying for these type of things that I'm gonna talk about next, okay? So I asked you to calculate just kind of like, what is your monthly outgo that you need to have? So, and don't answer, like, I don't need you to like, maybe we should. Everybody in the, everybody on Zoom, throw in the, no, I'm just kidding. How much money do you, how much debt do you have? You know, that's what, we'll all confess our debt. How much debt do you have? Okay, so ultimately they'll start with just like, how much money do you need on a monthly basis to pay food, shelter, clothes, cars, like that kind of stuff? What does that look like? So I had kind of given you guys an assignment to calculate that. Now, whether you did or you didn't, it's fine, but you need to do it if you haven't. You need to calculate what do you need for that. Okay, in addition to that, so now remember, we're talking about this is what 70% of your income should go to these kinds of things, okay? So the next one is, well, since I said debt, let's talk about that. Do you have any debt that you want to eliminate? And what does that look like? So that would be the next thing for you to calculate, is to figure out, like, in the next year, if you have debt, how much of that do you want to get rid of? So if you have a credit card debt or a RC Willie or a whatever, if you've got any type of debt that you owe money on, how much do you want to eliminate of that in the next year? Make that as a decision. Okay, next. Trips/vacation. What trips or vacations do you want to do in the next year? Now, if you were on Morning Ascent this morning, you heard me talk a little bit about this already, but which you were, weren't you? You were?
I was yesterday. Wasn't.
Well, I
today.
didn't ask that.
I know.
I didn't do yesterday.
I know.
I'm just kidding, Joe. I'm just
Putting
kidding.
it out there.
I know, I'm just kidding. So repeat for you guys for a minute, but I'll tell you guys the story. So I had an agent that came to this class 5 years ago. In the class, she had mentioned that she had never taken her family on a trip or a vacation, like a go out of state type of a vacation. She wanted to take them to Disney World. I said, here's what you do. So now here's what I'm saying for you guys too. Any trips or vacations that you want to do in the next year, actually go plan it. Like, I'm not saying you even have to put money on a credit card to do it, but go plan it. Like, go jump on and go, okay, how much would airfare be from here to Orlando? And then
Okay.
how many people are going? Therefore, how much is the airfare going to be? Well, it's going to be X amount of dollars per person, and we're going to have 5 people go, or whatever it is. Then, so that's what I'm going to need. Where are you going to stay when you get there? What hotel are you going to stay at? How much is that going to cost? And then plan it out. So for her, they were going to go to Disney World. Okay. How many days are you going to go? And how much are the passes going to be? Go figure that out. Who's going to pay for the food? And are you going to eat out, or what are you going to do? Like, how much are you going to need for that? Plan that out. What about the rental car? Plan that out. So ultimately, she did that. And a year and a half later, she found me and said, because of this class, she said, I went and did that. And I'm reporting back to you to tell you, I took my whole family and we went on that dream vacation, basically. And she said to me, she said, ultimately, when I did what you were talking about here, in order for me to accomplish what I wanted to goal-wise in the next year for that, I needed to make $120,000. And she said, I'm reporting back that I made $120,000 out of real estate because that's what I needed to go and do that. And here's the magic in it. When you go plan it, you're going to get excited about it, which is also going to have you become more committed to going and doing what it takes to have it take place. So, so she did. And here's the interesting thing to me. One of the things I've learned, so I already mentioned to you, 13 out of 14 people will fail out of real estate. One of the things that I have learned is I can't tell who's going to be successful and who's not. Meaning, like, I've had people come and sit in a class that if we took a survey, if we went around, maybe we should do that sometime. Let's all rate. Let's vote. Is Alex going to make it in real estate or not? Like, no.
The odds here, that means only one of us is gonna make it.
No, less than one of you. Like your arm. It might.
Less than one. Unless it's made it.
Well, say
Yeah,
one
that's right.
14 here.
Yeah, if there was, yeah. Between
That-
online and here, if
There
we
would
had
only be
14,
one of us.
there'd be
that
only
made
one
it.
that's still gonna, yeah.
Wow. That's.
Well, so here's what I've learned though. I can't tell, well, 2 things actually. Let me give you some hope too, since I made that sound pretty bad. Let me give you some hope.
Damn.
What the people who have come through my training, so you guys that are here, 60% will. So 6 out of 10
Oh,
still.
okay.
Now, which, here's the thing, that still means 4 out of the 10 won't, which is crappy, and I
Right.
wish we could do better, but 6 out of 10 will. So I'll give you some hope that way. Just nationwide, it's 13 out of 14. In our training program, 6 out of 10 will still be in the business. So
Okay, well, that's good.
that makes you feel better, right? Okay, but here's what I've learned. Here's what I've learned though. I don't know which 6 out of the 10.
Yeah.
And if we were to go, okay, we're gonna take a vote, everybody vote, is Alex gonna be the one that makes it?
Yeah.
You know, who says he's not gonna make it? Who says, you know, and then we go, okay, what about Miriam? Everybody vote. If we went through and did that, here's what I would tell you, there would be no rhyme or reason for it. Meaning, just because if we looked at Alex and go, well, he just looks like he would be successful. Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna make it. Here's what I've learned. You can't tell. You can't tell the ones that are gonna make it versus the ones who aren't until, now, fairly quickly I can tell, but like just showing up, if I had never taught or met to you guys before, there are people that you would look at it and you would go, even like for the recruiters. So let me take it to that level. Even for the recruiters, when they were hiring people, they will come in and be like, oh yeah, this person, oh, they're gonna be so good in the business. And then they would come through the training program and they would be one of the 4 that didn't make it. And then I had other times, this was the extreme example. I had a guy come to the class the one time and he raised his hand to ask me a question. And I said, yeah. And his name was Juan. And I said, yeah, Juan. And when he started to talk, he was missing his front teeth. He was from Mexico and had, so he therefore had a very thick accent. But he also then had a speech impediment. So Spanish was his first language, missing teeth, speech impediment. And I am not joking. I could not understand what he said. When he asked me the question, I was like, excuse me, can you say that again? And he said it again. And I honestly had to say, I am so sorry, but like, I think I need you to write down your question because I can't understand. Like, after that class was over, I left and I went and found the person who had recruited this guy, Juan, her name was Stacy. Called her and I go, Stacy, is this like a joke? Like, this guy is never going to make it in real estate. I said, I don't speak Spanish. And I understood him better when he spoke in Spanish. That's not true. But I'm like, I understood him in
That's making
Spanish
the
better than
story better,
English.
right?
Yeah, it makes the story better. But I'm like, ultimately, like, I mean, I joke about that, but I seriously probably would have understood him better in Spanish than I did in English. I was kind of like, I can't understand. But here's, you know what? He made it. Like, he's still a real estate agent today. And I'm like, I don't know how, because seriously, his speech impediment, missing teeth, maybe he's been successful and has teeth now. So I don't know, but
Yeah, he sounds like he had motivation.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing. I've just learned you can't tell who's going to make it and who
Yeah.
can't, who isn't. I don't know what my point of all that was now, but
Just the not knowing.
Oh, how many people fail?
The
oh,
6 out
no.
of 10.
Here's what it was. Yeah, here's what was my point. That lady that made the $120,000, if you would have asked me on day one, actually, truth is, if you had asked me after half the classes, I would have told you, yeah, she's never going to do anything in real estate. Like, I would have never believed that a year and a half later, she would have showed up and said, hey, I wanted to report back to you. I took that trip. I wanted to let you know that it happened. So the point being, I think there is magic in actually doing what we're talking about here to actually plan this out and do it. And my guess is the majority of the people who come through this class don't go do all this stuff that I'm asking them to do, but she did, and she made a good amount of money. I'm assuming she's still in the business today. I don't think she's with us anymore, but I would have told you, I would have never guessed she would have made it if I had to guess. So good news. So sometimes I say this in a class and people will ask me afterwards, well, what would you say about me? Would you say I'm going to make it, or would you guess I'm not? Well, here's the point. It doesn't matter if I thought you would or wouldn't, because even halfway through all the classes, I would have told you she's not going to make it, and she did. So
Yeah,
my point being, I don't know. But one of the secret differences is they're willing to do this kind of stuff. And if you'll do it, I'm telling you, it will make a huge impact in what you're doing. All right, last thing, and then we'll move on to the next. But do you know what the difference between a trip and a vacation is?
the trip is.
Now, you
go,
guys, most
go,
of you
go.
guys, These guys are all too young, they won't get it, but go ahead.
Well, a trip is go, you see this, go, get up at 8 o'clock and you're all day and you're,
Okay,
that's my.
that's your
interpretation.
definition of a
A
trip?
vacation is I'm sitting at an all-inclusive resort
Okay,
in Cancun.
okay, I'm
That's
sort of
my-
with you, sort of.
That's my.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you. Here's the difference. Trips have kids with you. Vacations, the kids don't go.
Well.
That's why I said you
yeah,
guys
don't
are
know
probably
if
too
you
young.
take Kids on a vacation at all-inclusive to Cancun, maybe, maybe
I never have.
not.
So, yeah, I was just joking about that. That's the difference. A trip, the kids go, the vacation, the vacation's relaxing. So, okay.
Vacation's
But good, so you got a plan. The point is you got a plan. All right, next. Next thing on here is, and I'm just gonna put things, okay? What things do you wanna buy? New car, new phone, new golf clubs, new clothes, new whatever. What things, and so figuring out like, so now let me make sure you guys really got it. Because we just talked about the trip, you go plan the trip. Let's say I wanted to buy a new car. You brought up Tesla, we'll go there. Let's say I wanted a new Tesla. Actually, no, let's go to what I really do.
No, I want a
G-Wagon.
Porsche.
No, I'm gonna go what I really want.
Well, I want a
The
Porsche.
Kia? No, just
Ford
kidding.
just announced the F-150 that's all electric. That's what I want.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
That's saving on gas.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what it's for me. just to
Yeah,
save on the
right,
gas.
uh-huh.
And to help everybody move. so
I
help
just-
all your
no,
friends.
Help
no.
the environment.
No.
right?
Heck no, I'm not telling you. No.
Confident
Yeah.
control.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so here's the thing. If I want the F-150 Lightning, then here's what I need to do. I could go online right now. So typically I would say if we were doing the Tesla, let's say that I wanted the Tesla, then I need to go test drive one. I need to go down to a car dealer
Mhm.
and say, this is the vehicle, or figure out what vehicle do I want and how much is it gonna cost? So if I want that F-150, I need to go on and build the specs because they don't have any out yet. But I need to go build the specs out to see, okay, for the one I want, how much is it gonna cost? What color is it gonna be?
Yeah.
What features, what are the options? Like, go build it that way. And then figure out, okay, how much is it gonna cost? And then I write that down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to buy a new pair of golf clubs, or set of golf clubs. Yeah.
pair, like
Yeah,
that.
I only use two of them anyway. so-
Three irons.
Yeah, so if I want a new set of golf clubs, I need to go figure out which ones I want. How much are they gonna cost? And maybe even go practice swinging them or something like, that's the point of this, okay? Is you gotta go do that. See, that's the thing. When we talk about vision boards, and typically every November we didn't with COVID, but typically every November we'll do a get together here, like in this room where, hey, show up if you want to create your vision board. My problem with the way that people do vision boards is they just look through a magazine and go, oh, yep, I want that. And then they post it. See, to me, go down and drive the car, take a picture of yourself in front of that car and then post that on your vision board. That's how I think a vision board ought to be done, not just, well, here's the
Yeah.
picture of the F-150 Lightning. I want that. Now, I might have to do that because I can't go do a test drive of it. Does that make sense? Okay.
Mhm.
So, okay. So essentially, think of it as those things here is what should be 70% of your income. Okay. So what about the other 30%? Now,
That's
remember,
taxes, right?
no, so good point. Yeah, let me put that up
What
here.
about taxes? Since we're all business owners,
Okay.
we need to pay taxes.
Did you learn anything from Donald Trump being the president? Business owners don't pay tax.
Yeah, I mean, goodness. I paid more.
That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole different.
Right.
But actually, it does bring up a good point. So
Yeah, you
let's
gotta
talk about
have
it
it.
because we're going back to the business owner. You should, so this is where I make sure I don't get sued here. You should go and talk to a CPA or an attorney and find out about getting structured as a business. Okay, so here's what I will tell you. So I'll tell you the quick story on that. I got my license, and I'll share more detail on this in another class, but kind of struggled through it the first year and a half. Started to make some money. I went and got my taxes done by a neighbor. Just found a guy that was like kind of, he did, I don't know if he was a CPA, but he did taxes. So I went to him, he did my taxes, paid taxes. The next year, my business was starting to take off. And I went to him again and I said, hey, bunch of people at work, I've heard them talk about that they got set up as a corporation for their real estate career. Should I do that? And he goes, nah, I don't think you should. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did it. The next year I went to have him do my taxes. Showed up, dropped my stuff down. He looked through it and he goes, you know what we ought to do? We ought to get you set up as a corporation.
Oh my
And
god.
I go, what? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I asked you that last year and you told me no. And he goes, well, I didn't realize you were going to double your income. And I was like, well, in fact, actually thinking back, this guy I would put in the self-employed box. Like,
Yeah.
because he
Yeah,
was like, yeah,
category.
you're my neighbor. You're never going to amount to anything. You know?
Oh my
I don't know.
god.
So I said, okay. So I went to one of the other agents at the work at the office and I said, hey, who do you use? Told me, I called up this other guy, this CPA, called him, I went and met with him. He took a look at my taxes. He goes, I could have saved you $10,000 in taxes. And I was like, oh, that was painful.
Yeah. that's a
So-
lot of money.
I bet you never said hi to that neighbor anymore. You're like.
Actually, I helped him sell his house and move.
Oh,
but-
did you? Okay.
But he never did my taxes.
Yeah.
So, so I went to this other guy and he started doing it. So here's the thing. And without bringing politics into it, but a lot of people would get frustrated because Donald Trump didn't, he never paid taxes. Well, it's because he would get smart people to figure out how
Yeah.
not to have to pay taxes. And I'm all for paying taxes. So let me preface it that way. No, honestly, I am good with paying my taxes.
Yeah.
But I am going to do everything legally possible to reduce the amount that I pay. Once I have done that and I've landed on this is what I owe,
Yeah.
this year I owed taxes and actually I was pleasantly surprised at how little I owed, honestly. But my wife gets frustrated. I can't believe we got to write a check to that. And I'm like, no, I'm good with it. Like,
Yeah.
because here's why I say that. Like, we live, even though it's kind of a mess maybe sometimes, but we live in probably the best country in the world that provides us with some pretty good things. Like, I mean, have any of you ever lived in another country?
I was born in Mexico and it's not a fun place to live.
Yeah, I mean, there is a distinct difference.
It's corrupt everywhere, but overseas, it's really.
It's
corrupt.
even, yeah, it's
You don't
really
care,
corrupt
yeah.
there. We're just only kind of corrupt.
Yeah,
here.
like-
We're a little bit.
Yeah, we're a little bit corrupt, but yeah, no, I mean, you stop and look at it, like, we have good paved roads and like you say, the thing I remember going down to the all-inclusive resorts, and this was years ago, and so I don't know if it's changed, but I would remember getting off of the plane at the airport in either Cancun or Puerto Vallarta, and getting on a bus and going, I just remember the trash that was on the side of the freeways. When's the last time you went to Mexico?
Oh, I haven't been back.
Oh,
since.
yeah,
That's
okay.
like California. You go to California, it's all dirty. Well, the country.
Yeah,
Like compared here to California. it's a
Yeah,
big
California,
difference.
Yeah.
they're homeless and all their problems. but
yeah, so here's my point. Here's the point though. I like the idea of having paved roads. I like the idea
Yeah.
that we have sidewalks and so to me, like, could the government do a better job with how they spend it? 100%, I agree with that. And in fact, the way that I heard, do you guys know who Jim Rohn is? Not Rome, not the sports guy. Rohn, R-O-H-N. Oh, you got to start listening to, he's dead now. He died in 2009, but he's great stuff to listen to from him, Jim Rohn. He's the one he's the one that I learned this from, of like, I'm glad to pay my taxes after I've done everything I can to reduce them. That I got that from him. And he said, some people would say, yeah, but the government doesn't do a very good job. And he says, well, I would rather have that than what you see in other countries that happens as far as that. So that's where, for me, I got the idea of like, I'm good with paying my taxes, but I also want to reduce everything I can on it. Now, here's the good news, bad news. That new accountant that I found that said he would save me $10,000, years later, after he had done my taxes for many, many years, he ended up in jail because he was that good though. Like, that's how good he was. Now, good news is, like, I was panicked actually when I found out that he was being investigated by the IRS and was probably going to go to jail for tax fraud. I was like, ooh. Well, here's how that I
Why
actually,
did you do that? I don't get that.
He was
he was so good.
Devil books or something?
Well, no,
Yeah.
what happened is I was set up as a business. And so he said, you would have heard from the IRS if there was a problem with how I did your taxes. And I never heard a thing from the IRS. However, My sister-in-law and brother-in-law, my wife's sister and her husband have to go back and pay some back taxes and stuff. And the problem was this, he was treating self-employed people like they were business owners. He was doing their taxes as if they were a business owner. They just hadn't set up the business.
Oh, they didn't have like an EIN or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, and I'm like, why did they not do that then? So they did have to pay some back taxes and stuff on it.
Mm,
But anyway,
yeah.
get yourself structured that way. Find out if it's right for you, all that kind of stuff. Get yourself structured that way and get set up. Cause I'm telling you, like, he was so good that I had 1 year. I don't know if maybe I shouldn't confess this. Statute of limitations is probably over.
This is a safe zone. You're
But-
good.
But again, the IRS had looked it through it, so I guess it was fine. I had 1 year, I think I made over $150,000 in real estate. And I got the earned income tax credit. So not only did I not pay any taxes,
You got
the
the
government
credit.
gave me money because I was so poor.
Oh, wow. I
That's
wish
where
I
I'm
could
like,
do that.
after that,
Yeah. Poor you, Russ.
I know, well, that's what here's my point though, like after that year, I told him, I don't think I feel good about like.
That feels right.
Yeah, I was like, and I even actually said that to the accountant. He was like, I just followed their code and it's what it was. But I was like, yeah, maybe next year let's not go that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think if you make less than 500,000 a year, you have very minimal chance of being audited. So this probably it. You were lucky that you didn't get audited.
why are you assuming I was making less than 500?
Well, I'm just saying you said the whole thing.
Well, you
I'm
said
just-
120.
I know, I'm not. Yeah, so I don't know. Anyway, so the whole point of all that conversation, taxes get
You have to
included in the
think
same.
about that. You do have to have.
No, you gotta get a good accountant, and then you don't have to think about it. That's my
Yeah.
point, is like, yes, you might pay some taxes, and you probably will, but here's the thing I will tell you. My father-in-law works as a, like a handyman for Harmon's, the grocery store. And he is old enough that he could start collecting Social Security now, which he did this last year. And because of that, though, he didn't know he needed to plan accordingly for taxes on that. Here's what I'll tell you. I know I made a lot more money than he did last year. But him and my mother-in-law both work, and I guarantee you, I made a lot more than what they both did. And I paid less taxes than they did. Because I'm set up as a business and he's not. Like,
Yeah.
there are distinct advantages to doing that and getting
Right.
set up. So, if you're against that, then don't set up as a business and you can
And
pay a
pay
bunch of taxes.
45%.
Exactly. But if you don't want to pay that much in taxes, get set up as that. So I typically leave it off when we're talking about here. And the reason and it's not intentional, but honestly, if you do it right, it shouldn't be like a devastating
Yeah.
amount that you owe every year. So, okay. So what about the other 30%? So now let's talk about that. So 10% of the other 30, so 10% should go to some type of a charity. Identify some type of a charity, a church, the United Way, like, I don't really care. Big brother, big sister, find something that you should do 10% to charity. Now, why?
Tax break.
Taxes.
Okay, good. That's part of it's
It
taxes,
is taxes.
but I would say there's more to it even than that.
But it's giving back,
That's right.
Feeling good.
feeling good,
Well, remember,
and paying it forward.
well, here's the thing. Remember I told you that on this cash flow quadrant, the fifth one after that is to become a philanthropist?
Yeah.
See, yeah, that too. I love that. Thanks, Tristan. So here's the other thing is that for me, ultimately, if the next level, meaning if we think of it as we go from being an employee to being self-employed, do we want to become this business owner to then become an investor? Then the next level is the philanthropy, which here's the thing, they're giving away a lot more than 10%. And so here's the point. If I asked you to give away 10 cents from $1, would anybody have an issue with that? You would? Alex is like, yes, I would.
My 10 cents.
Like, yeah, Alex is like, you're not touching my
Not
10
the
cents.
principal.
But if you had $1 million and I said, I want you to give away 100,000 of it, does that feel a
You
little bit?
might go,
Does that feel a little harder than, if you had a 10 dime sitting in front of you and I said, give me one, not one of you probably would have an issue with that. But if you had $1 million sitting in front of you and I said, give me 100,000 of it,
Sorry.
like, does it change your feeling a little bit?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
like-
a little,
But-
but not, I'd still want to, but.
You would want to, but you wouldn't do it.
But I probably.
I would want to give it
I'd
to
probably
you.
say, oh, 50,000 is still great.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna
good,
go-
that's
I'm gonna
fine,
do that.
perfect, that's good. So here's the point. You have to start when the amounts are small, because otherwise you won't become that to where
Yeah.
stop and think about it. Bill Gates today, his goal or his job is what?
Philanthropy.
Yeah, basically to give away his money.
Well, because if he doesn't, he's got Texas and he's got.
Yeah, and maybe that's the whole thing that drives it, I don't know, but
Who
hopefully,
knows?
hopefully the reason to doing it is because you want to help people that maybe are less fortunate than you. That's kind of more what this is about, is it gives you the feeling of being able to go and help, okay? So that's the idea
Yeah.
of why in this book, The Richest Man in Babylon, which is not a church book, by the way, but in that one, he says, you should give away 10% of your income to charity. So find something that you can get involved with that way to donate to. All right, next 10% is going to go to passive savings. What's passive savings? What does that mean?
You can get to it if you need to. It's not like tied up in an.
So, and I
investment.
wouldn't say, don't think of it as necessarily an emergency fund. I mean, so if, I wasn't gonna go to this level, but I think you should have it on hand, you should have 6 months worth of
Mhm.
like available cash. So that's kind of, and when you say emergency fund, that's what that would be for me. What I'm saying here is, here's the difference. Passive savings is you're giving the money to somebody else to manage it. So you're going to a bank, basically, or a mutual fund or something like that, to where you're letting somebody else manage it. You're saying, here's my money, you go manage it, increase it, get it back. So in essence, if you went to the bank and put money in a savings account, that's a passive. Okay? So you should have, what?
I said, doesn't get you.
Yeah,
great ROI.
Well, I know, that's why I'm saying it's probably not the best idea,
That's
but,
the thing, but you can get to it, like you can use it.
right.
if you-
Here's the other question. Why would we want to have money in a passive savings? Why would we want to give it to an insurance company or a bank or whatever to go manage the money? Okay, good, I'll help you out. What do we do for a living?
Real estate.
Okay, and most of the houses that get bought, are they cash or do they get loans?
Oh,
You have to have the money. in the
Loans.
bank.
Where do those loans
from our
Come from.
money in the bank.
That's right. So part of why we are going to do 10% to a passive is it helps our economy. Like, imagine what you saw what happened with toilet paper last year. Imagine if all of a sudden everybody wanted to go to the bank and pull their money out, which actually I was less worried about toilet paper last year, more worried about if all this, because at one point I started to feel like we better go pull out and have like cash on hand of like $3,000 or $5,000
Yeah.
just
I thought
ready to
that
go.
too, yeah.
well, if everybody did that, what would happen? Even if we only went to the bank and said, I'm just gonna pull out $3,000 out of my account, but everybody did it at the bank.
Only the few would be able to get it. Everyone else would be screwed over
Yeah, why?
because they don't have that much cash in the bank.
And why do they not have that much cash? in the
They
bank?
invest it like.
That's
every-
right, because see, so when you look at if you took everybody's bank statement from a bank and added it all up, the bank doesn't have that much money on hand to walk in and get it, because they take it and then they loan it out to somebody else.
Yeah,
So the only way they're gonna be able to get that money is they gotta go call those notes due, which now, like, imagine what that would do to our economy. Like, so honestly, the best thing we can do is getting more money into that, because then it loosens it up for them to lend it out. Does that make sense? So that's why we do 10% to passive savings. We're doing our part to kind of help the economy keep going as well, and to help our business as well. All right, last 10%. Last 10% is going to be active savings. What would that mean? If passive is someone else's manage it, what would active be?
Your manager.
That's right. You're managing it. So now, again, we're in real estate. I talked to you guys about Phil Harvey. What got Phil to where he was is doing active investing. It's when you come across a really good deal on a property, you come across somebody who says, I need to get out and I need to get out quick. You know, my house is beat up. I know it won't sell for a lot, but I just need to get out fast. You want to be in a position to buy that house.
Yeah.
See, one of the things that I always say when I'm prospecting and I come across an investor that's like, hey, I want to go and buy some investment properties. For me, I want to find out first, like, what are they thinking in terms of investment properties? Because if what they're thinking in terms of investment properties is a screaming deal where they're going to make 30, 40, 50, $60,000. If I come across that property, I'm not sending it to them.
You're gonna keep it.
That's right. So that's, I want you guys to get to that point is to where when you come across that deal, see, so when I come across that investor that, hey, I want to find a property and this is what I'm looking for, I just kind of go, yeah, I'm probably not the right agent for you. Because if I find that property, I'm buying. I'm
Yeah,
not taking it to you. So until you're there, when you find that property, I'm your buyer. Call me. I'm serious. Like you guys are looking at me like, oh, okay. If you come across a really good deal property, call me and talk to me about it. And then you get to the point that you can do that. But honestly, like that's what we're talking about here is, so for Phil, when he came across those properties, he either bought it, fixed it up, and then sold it, or bought it, fixed it up, and he's kept them now as investment properties that he now rents out. That's what we want to do is we want to get to that point. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what this active investing is. Active savings or active investing is you are getting it. You're taking the money and you're going and finding things to invest it in that will not only get you a return on, get your money back, but it'll get you an additional amount on top of it. So, you know, think of it as if you could, like, for example, Rick Bentley, you guys all know who Rick is, right? Yeah. So Rick, his son works at a car dealership, called him up one day and goes, hey, Dad, I got this car. We just took it in on trade. They said they would sell it for this amount of money. Well, he went and bought it. And then he and I went to lunch one day out at in South Jordan. We were at DP Cheesesteak and we ran into this guy that's an appraiser and we start talking to him. And on the way to lunch, Rick was like, I think I'm going to try it. I was going to keep the car, but I think I'll sell it. I think I can make some money off of it. At lunch, he says to the guy, hey, you want to buy it? It was like a Mazda Miata. Is that the small one?
yeah, a little sports car.
Yeah, a little sport. He goes, you guys want to buy a Mazda Miata? And the one guy goes, hey, I actually got a place in St. George and I was thinking, is it a convertible? And Rick said, yeah. And he goes, I want a convertible for my place in St. George. I'm like interested. How much would you sell it for? And he goes, well, I was thinking 6, but I'd sell it to you for 5,500. Guy next day drove over to Rick's house, bought. Rick, I think, bought it for 2,000 or something. And then he turned around and sold it for, it might have been 3, but that he paid. But he sold. That's active investing. You need to have some that you're like, okay, I'm going to go out and find something to put this money into that I can then get a return on. Does that make sense? All right. Now that we've done that, we would take all of the 70%. So whatever that total was that you came up with, and then you're going to divide into that to come up with the 30%. So that you'll know then the other 10% charity, 10% passive, 10% active. Now I know. So when you look on this business plan that you guys have here, and we've got here this total commissions, what your goal is going to be. So the one under where it says 20 blank goals, right under that total commissions earned, that's where you're going to put in whatever this total is.
So you want to take the 70 total, divide it by 30, and that gives you the.
That's going to give you what your goal should be in terms of income. Now, is that going to be a little bit different than if at the start of class, which I should have done this, I usually do. The start of class, I usually go, okay, what's your goal? How much money you want to make? So go back. Can I pick on you, Alex? Since you're in person, like I got it. Prior to hearing all this, if I would have said to you, okay, you're in real estate, what's your goal? How much money you want to make this year? What would have you said?
Realistically, that'd be 80, 90, right?
Okay. So now let me
For my
ask you
first
this.
year, but later on.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm just saying this year. So, but if you were to go and do this and you said, and I said to you, okay, Alex, great. You want to make 80 or 90,000. How much do you need on a monthly basis? You don't have to tell me, but whatever it is. And if I said, do you have any debt you want to eliminate? And you said, yeah, I do. And it's $5,000. Okay, great. How much do you want to eliminate? All 5,000. Okay, great. Write it down. What trips or vacations do you want to go? And you told me. And I said, okay, how much is it going to cost? And you told me. And then I said, do you have any things you want to buy this year? Yeah, I want to buy a new, what do you want to buy? Boat, car?
Nothing
Nothing?
really.
Okay.
Boat,
To
do a boat.
be fair, I did this with Katie Bush,
Oh, okay.
and so she planned it out for me, so that's why I got.
That's where you're at. Okay. All right. So, but if I were to do that with somebody else then, and I said that, what do you think the chances are we're gonna land on 80,000? Like, here's what I mean, is probably it's gonna land on 79,000 or it's gonna land on $132,642.
Yeah.
When you write down your goal, don't round it up or round it down. Put exact, whatever that number is that you come up with right here,
But
write that exact number. Don't round it up. Don't round it down. And then if I said to you, Alex, what's your goal? Rather than 80 or 90, I want to hear it's going to be $87,642 is my goal. Now, why? Because every one of those dollars means something. And by saying, like, imagine that way. If I said to Alex, what's your goal in terms of, like, let's go back to it's yesterday. We don't even know that we're going to be talking about this today. Let's hypothetically say. And I said to Alex, hey, what's your goal of how much you want to make in real estate? Actually, let's do it this way. But I started over here and I said, okay, how much do you want to make in real estate? And she said 120. And I asked you and you said,
150.
okay,
100.
okay,
100.
okay. And then, so you guys have all said round numbers and now we get to Alex. This
87.
$172,643. What, how would you guys, if every one of you had said round numbers and then we
Yeah.
got to him and he goes 174,632.
I'd be like, man, he knows his
Yeah.
stuff. Everything I ever read.
Notice that, like all of a sudden you're gonna be like, whoa, like he really knows.
He's very
Wow.
specific.
But notice the difference is it would be because like you know what you want. Like notice that you would think of it that way. Wow, that guy like knows exactly. Well, that's what I want you guys to be. So as you do this business plan, that's what I want you to do. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, now should we get into the business plan now that we've been an hour and 15 minutes talking about other stuff?
Taxes.
Yeah, talking about taxes and stuff. All right, so let me get my screen share up here.
Yeah, did you work out again?
Oh, I actually woke up at 4:30. I was thinking about it.
You're crazy.
Well, I'm actually following up plan. It was rest day yesterday, so. I'm
That's
probably
good.
resting today.
Did you print out a calendar?
Okay.
I tried it.
I know, you're like, well, did you find a different one? You just gave up. You're like, did you try to extend it?
I tried, but didn't succeed. I'll find it.
Okay, here we go. So in terms of the business plan, so you're gonna do business plan 4, and here's the first thing for you guys to decide. Do you want this to be just from now to the end of the year, or is it gonna go from June to June? And whatever, there's not a right answer. You just decide, okay? So you're gonna put that in there on the business plan. The next thing is previous year's numbers. Now, most of you guys are new, so you're not gonna have any previous year's numbers, so just leave it blank if that's the case. But if you have been in the business for a year, then write that down, okay, or longer. So what is your previous year? How much total commissions did you earn? What is the average commission? Now, so here's what I will tell you guys is, so if you haven't been if you've been in the business, figure out what your total commissions were, divide it by the number of transactions you did, and you're gonna see what your average commission is. Good.
So this changes if you're on a team, right?
Yeah, that's, yes.
Because originally I did it with Katie before I joined the team, and now I'm on a team.
So now it's gonna change then. Yep. Yeah, so here's what you wanna do then is, so our average, which that's right where I was gonna go. Our average that we have for our commission at this office is about $7,000. Okay, so the average commission that people are gonna earn is 7,000. But if you're on a team, then it may end up being, 5,000 instead of the 7 or 4 or whatever, like something like that. So that's what, you're gonna have to figure that out to know what your average commission is, okay? So if you're on a team, I would say go to the team leader and say, what is it, what is the average commission, for me, what could I expect to be as my average commission? Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so total business expenses, this one I have a hard time with on our business plan, because here's the challenge for me. Like, actual business expenses versus what I write off on my taxes, which we already had a big discussion on.
Yeah,
Like, my business expenses are huge as far as the IRS is concerned.
right.
But if you really look at how much do I spend on business expenses, not a ton. So I always have a hard time of telling you, like, here's what I would put in there in terms of business expenses. And so to some extent, I would say for being newer, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Ultimately, here's what I would say, keep track of it so that next year you'll be able to say, here's what my expenses were and what percentage of my income that was. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
No, mine's just fine. Oh, okay, yeah. I'm late. I just.
We'll make you suffer too. So don't. All right, so total closed transactions. So if you know what your average commission that you're getting is, you know what your goal is, you can divide that into it to see how many transactions you need to do.
Maybe you could look at the business expenses as like a percentage or something.
Well, yeah, we do have that here. It's just, here's the hard part for me of me saying to you as an agent, here's what I would plan for in terms of
Yeah,
your expenses is, I mean, ultimately, I guess I would say if you were to calculate out of just how much it costs you on a monthly basis,
Right.
what your monthly expenses are for real estate. Your MLS dues is
Yeah,
kind of what
your
I'm referring
gas
to
and
and stuff
your-
like that. Yeah, I mean, you could kind of calculate
kind
it
of
out
get
that
it
way.
there.
But here's the thing, the good news is, like, I'm not a big believer in you going and spending a ton of money on marketing in terms of real estate,
Yeah,
especially early on. So that's why I usually don't spend a whole lot of time. All right, so total transactions. So let's just say I wanted to have $250,000. I sit and tell you, don't do round numbers, and then now I'm gonna do round numbers. But I'm gonna do round numbers just because it'll easier to show you guys. If I want to make $250,000, and let's say my average commission is $10,000, how many transactions do I need to do?
25.
25.
25.
Okay, well, I'll make it easier next time. All right. If a train leaves Boston going, no.
No, not the starter.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
Eat
so.
watermelons.
So 25 transactions. So the next question is, of those 20 transactions, how many are going to be buyers or sellers? Or, excuse me, how many were, is what this, so sorry, we're still looking at previous year's numbers. Is how many total closed and how many were buyers and how many were sellers. That's how you're going to get the percentage for later on. How many days did you work last year and how many hours did you work each day? Okay, so you're going to put that down. Next thing is the goals. So under total commissions earned is where you're gonna write down using the number I was doing earlier, 250 transactions. Or 250,000. If I want to, and I'm gonna get 10,000, I need to do a total closed transactions of 25. So then the next question is, if I'm gonna do 25 transactions, how many total appointments will I have to attend? Well, here's how I like to, again, the best thing you can do is keep track of these numbers so that you can calculate it out for yourself.
Right,
But until then, where you don't have that, here's how I tell new agents to think through. What you want to do is basically double these numbers. So
Yeah.
meaning, if I want to close 25 transactions, I probably need to attend 50 appointments in order
Yeah.
to get that to take place.
Right.
Make sense? So that's how I would do it. Now, again, and this is, especially in this market, this is extreme. But if I need to get 25 transactions, and let's just say that to begin with, I am assuming that I'm going to do 15 of those transactions will be listings sold and 10 will be buyers sold, or maybe it's the opposite, either way,
Mhm.
but double that again. So if I'm going to do, let's say 15 listings sold to get to the 25 transactions, I'm probably going to need to take, and again, in this market, this is not correct, but I usually just train it to new agents as you need to take twice as many listings as you're going to sell. So if you're going to sell 15, you probably need to take 30. Now, in today's market, that, if you take 30, you're probably going to sell 29, but
Yeah,
but as a general rule, and part of why I say that with newer agents is because a newer agent will go and overprice a property that a seasoned agent is less likely to do, like, just because we want a listing, so we'll go do whatever, okay? All right, total buyer controlled sales, so if I was gonna do 10 in this case, I would say, okay, I need to do 10 buyer controlled sales on that. Make sense? So listings sold is 15, but listings taken is gonna be, like I said, it's just easier to think of, you're probably gonna have to take twice as many as you're gonna get, and same thing on appointments attended. You're probably gonna have to go on twice as many. And truthfully, as a new agent, you might even have to go on 3 times as many, but this is a good starting place for it. Okay. Next, outgoing referrals. So that's something that I personally feel like at a minimum, you should be doing 1 outgoing referral per quarter. So 1 every 3 months. So essentially your goal, if you were doing this to the end of the year, I would say ought to be at least 2. But if you're doing this for a whole year, you should be sending at least 4 outgoing referrals. Okay? Now, especially if you will pay attention though on the outgoing referrals, you can come across those pretty easily as you're prospecting. Somebody says, yeah, we're gonna move to Texas. Well, see if you can, who do you have in Texas? Do you have an agent there? Because I can get you in touch with one. Somebody's coming in from out of state. Do you have a home you need to sell? I could help you. That's what you want to be thinking on this. But I would say at least 1 a quarter you should be doing, maybe even every other month. So you decide. All right, total days worked. This is where you're going to pull out your calendar and figure out what's that going to look like and write it down. Okay. Total hours prospected. So this is where we got to figure out, okay, what's the schedule need to look like? What should my schedule look like so that I know how many days I'm going to be, or how many hours I'll be prospecting? So on this one, you could write it in as a total, or you could just put how many per day or how many per week, the hours you're going to be prospecting. But I would say at a minimum, especially if you're new getting it started, minimum of 3 hours a day need to be spent in prospecting. Okay. And then contacts, how many should you do? Well, so again, I would say 30 a day is the minimum you want to be doing. 30 contacts per day. I got an extra pen.
Oh, thank you.
You know, there's this thing that used to be going around called
Oh,
we were laughing this morning, joking about that. I don't think it exists in Utah anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
everybody's like, we're done. We're over.
And then 3 hours.
All right. So 30 a day is minimum there. All right, so next, number 3. So your next page, prospect.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So when it says total of 30 a day, is that 30 people you actually speak to a day contact or just that you try to get? a hold of?
Yeah, no, talked.
That you actually.
Yeah,
talk to?
not
Didn't
dials.
hang up,
So then you
right?
actually probably have to do like.
I was gonna
60
say
to
more like
90.
60 or 90.
60
Di-
to 90.
oh,
to
yeah.
get your 30 a
That's
day.
right. Well, 60, 90 calls, probably more than that actually even, but.
And then they get a message or.
If you
they
get a
hang
message,
up
it
on
doesn't
you.
count. Well, if they hang up on me, it depends. So like,
Yeah.
let's do, if I called, so I called, ring, ring, so hang up on me and then I'll tell you if I count.
I'll say
Ring,
it.
ring,
Hello.
hi, I'm looking for Joan.
This is her.
Hey, Joan, this is Russ with Century 21.
Click.
Okay, so as long as.
She's like on the phone too.
Yeah, I know. So if I did that and if I at least can get out of my mouth, this is Russ with Century 21. If she hangs up on me, contact.
What about this? So last week I sent a text message out and then they replied with F you. Does that count as a contact?
Oh.
And that was from his brother.
No, it was just a random
So,
person.
so was it like an internet lead or something or what?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I would count that as a contact. If they don't reply, I don't count it as a contact,
You
even
know-
though they probably read it. But if they reply, so to me, it's no different. If I had called Joan and she said F you and hung up, that's a contact.
You know, it's
As-
funny. I have to say this quick story. I was calling somebody just randomly and they hung up on me. So the next time I made a joke, I told them who I was. I said, don't hang up on me. Well, they started laughing and I got 15 seconds more to
Yeah,
give me my spiel and
before they hung
I
up.
didn't get it. And then they said, I'm not interested, but at least I got 15 seconds.
Yeah, stayed on a little longer. Yeah, good.
So,
Which to some extent, like,
you know,
that should be your goal, is how long can you keep
Can we
people
keep
on the
them
phone?
on?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big game.
absolutely. Okay, So yeah, as far as contacts, it's for me, if I can at least say who I am, like I'm with Century 21, not interested, that's a contact to me. Like
Okay.
you decide, you define it for you, but I know some agents like go, well, I'm not gonna count it as a contact unless he'll engage in a conversation. Well, that's fine. I mean, if you want to do that, do that. But for me, if he answered and I said, hey, is this Alex? Yeah, but I'm not interested. Click, I wouldn't count that. Well, because I didn't even tell, he doesn't even know what I'm calling
Oh,
for.
yeah.
So if I can at least get my name out in Century 21 and they hang up, I count. But it's up to you. Like, I don't know that I'm not saying I'm right. That's just how I.
Okay.
Okay, next, prospecting. So sources of business. Here's the thing. You should have 2, maybe 3 sources of business. One of them should be your SOI. So I would say on the top line, write in sphere of influence or SOI, however you want to keep track of it, but write down sphere of influence or SOI. The other 1 or 2, doesn't really matter, decide what you're going to do, but choose 2 or 3, one of them being SOI, of how you're going to prospect. Now, we will, I think next week is, I think, lead generation. So next week's classes will be all about exactly that. Let me make sure I'm correct. Yep. So if you're not sure what 1 or 2 other ones, then wait to fill this out till next week and we'll cover what
Okay.
some ideas are, okay? All right, total hours prospected. Again, that's going to be tied to what's your schedule look like. But again, should be a minimum of 3 hours a day, I think. Average contacts per hour. So on this one, you're typically going to get somewhere between 8 and 12 contacts in an hour. Now, the reason it's a range like that of 8 to 12 is it depends on what you're doing. Like if you're, and who you're calling. Like if you're calling for sale by owners, you could probably get 12 in an hour because they're more likely to answer the phone because they've advertised.
Yeah, they
They
think
want
you're
to
a
sell their house. They
buyer.
think you're a potential buyer calling. Versus if I'm just randomly calling or randomly knocking on doors, you're going to probably get a lower percentage of people more towards the 8 contacts per hour versus the 12. Does that make sense? So I usually just say, put it as like 10 is kind of, if you don't know, say I'm going to probably average 10 contacts an hour. Okay. So from that total contacts, what's your goal in terms of total contacts? Again, you could write 30 per day in there, or you could total it out for, if you figured out from above how many days you're going to work.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing 10 contacts an hour and I'm going to cost like 3 hours a day, how many days, how many total contacts. Okay, next, total doors knocked. So on this one, just decide for yourself. So this one is actually like, even if
Random.
nobody answers, that I knocked on the door.
Oh, okay.
So this one is how many of those will you do? So we have an agent in this office. Her name is Lou Tran. You may or may not have heard of her or seen her, but on her team, and I don't know if they're still doing this. Before COVID, every person on the team had to knock on 100 doors every day. So just kind of figure out for you, how many doors are you going to knock, and put how many per day or per week that you're going to knock on. And if it's 0, that's fine. Just, you got to have something else you're doing though. So just total doors knocked. And then total appointments set. Here's what I will tell you. For me, and we'll talk about this next Tuesday in greater detail. My goal was every day that I worked to set a minimum one appointment. So if I calculated, and let's just make it for, let's just say for this week, if this week I'm going to work 5 days, then my total appointment set I would put in here is 5. So for me, here's how, if I was filling this out today, I would write in there 1 appointment set every day I work. And actually for me, I would write as 1 new appointment set is how I would do it. But that to me is kind of where I think you ought to be in terms of the appointment settings. Now, it may take you a little bit of time to get there, but ultimately 1 a day. So if I knew for me, if I on Monday said, I'm going to set 5 appointments this week, and then on Tuesday, I decided I wanted to take Friday off, I had to set 2 appointments on either Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That's how I approached it. All right, sphere of influence. SOI, let's see, total people in your SOI as of today. So do you know that? If you do, write it down. If you don't, then figure out how many people are in your SOI. Here's how I would define SOI. If you called them on the phone and you said, hi, this is Russ, are they gonna know who it is? Even if I had to say this is Russ Orchard, like, if I called and said this is Russ and they know, then for sure they are. If I called and even said, hey, this is Russ Orchard, how you doing? And they would respond with, oh, good, Russ, like, even if I'm not very good friends with them, but if I could call and say, this is Russ Orchard, and they didn't say who, how do I know you? Like, then, so for me, that's how I would define my SOI, is people that if I called them on the phone, said, hey, this is Russ Orchard, they know who they're talking. Okay, that's what I'm gonna define as SOI. So total people in your SOI by the end of the year, how many do you want to have? So we'll talk more about this in the SOI class, but just decide how many you want to have. So if I had 100 and I want to have 200, then total people added to my SOI would be, I even made this one really easy math.
Well, 100, if you start with.
There, thank you.
100.
Yeah, good. So if I started with 100 and I want to have 200 by the end of the year, then I'm going to add 100. Okay. Man, next
That
time I'm
was
going to do this.
easy.
I have one person in my SOI and I want to get to 2, Miriam. How many do I need?
Oh my God, 1, geez.
Okay. So next one on 4D, I will email my SOI every month is what I think you need there. You need to send an email to your SOI every month. I will mail my SOI every quarter. So I think you got to do, like, think of it this way. I'm going to do 1 month of an email, a second month of an email, and the third month I'm going to do some type of an actual mailing. Okay. Or you still could do an email every month, but once a quarter, send something in the mail to them. Okay. I will personally call my SOI every, how often? And then again, just you should never let somebody in this group of SOI go more than once a quarter, like at least quarterly. Some of them should be monthly. So, okay. So I will personally call my SOI every minimum quarterly, but some of them monthly. I will post on social networks, blank times per blank. Just decide how often. If you don't want to do any, then don't do any. That's fine. But here's how I think about this one. On the social media, it ought to be a 4-to-1 ratio. So meaning for every 4 times you do some other post, you do 1 real estate related. And think about it as trying to do these. You want to do them in more of a scenario that on the social network, as I like to do it, is in more subtle ways. Like once I will post some like, hey, if you want to think about buying or selling, like that's great. But I also like doing some subtle ones of like, if you're out showing a house and you see something unique, take a picture of it and be like, hey, I was out showing houses today and saw this. Or I was out going to meet a client at a house and I saw this crazy accident, and then you post a picture. Like subtly,
Wow.
well, that's what came to mind. I don't know. But
Everybody's safe though.
yeah, everybody was
But
safe.
check
Yeah.
it out. No, I like that because it's not like you're pushing, like,
'Cause
okay, pushing your friends, like, I
But
only
you're-
want to talk to you if you're gonna get me business.
That's right. So, but you're subtly saying, hey, I was out going to meet a client to write an offer on a
Yeah.
house, and I saw this crazy looking bird. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
I saw this bird with a broken, no, I'm just kidding.
I was showing a house last week down in Lehigh, and we got stuck with all those watermelons on the freeway. And I was like, oh, that would have been awesome to take a picture of those watermelons.
Oh, I don't even think that's what you were referring to earlier. right?
I
Oh,
was just
no.
pulling that out
You
of
just
it,
said
yeah.
watermelon out of the hat.
Watermelons caught on fire, I guess. They got
Oh, I
busted
did hear about that.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
A
That's right.
watermelon
Wow.
combusted?
Yeah,
You
they
should have
had a
taken
big
a
old
picture.
dumpster picking them up on the freeway.
That's
Oh
right.
my
I
God.
did
They
hear
were
about
like
that.
3 lanes over, they were
That's
spilled
awesome.
everywhere.
I would have gotten one.
That
All
would've
right,
been
but so
another
yeah,
one.
so that would be an
would've
example.
been a
That would have been a
great
great
one.
one if you take a picture. Hey, I was
Yeah.
out showing a client some houses in
Yeah,
Lehigh,
look
and
at
on my way
this,
back,
how
look what I
funny.
saw.
All these melons.
But that way you're subtly telling them, you're reminding them, I do real estate,
Yeah.
but here's a picture that doesn't have them feel like you're saying, who do you know that I
Yeah,
can
like
help?
so in their face.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Get boomerang.
Let's see. Yeah, Isaac's saying get boomerang for mailing. Okay, cool. Thanks. All right, mindset. The next mindset piece. What books are you going to read over the next year? So on this one, you can list it out. So here's one of the things that, and I kind of mentioned this today. We're going to start doing book club, although we had a call today with the after morning ascent, and I'm not sure what it's gonna look like, but we're doing it for sure. It's happening. So what, and how that will work, by the way, is we will just have monthly of like, this is the book, and typically what we will do is the company will buy a bunch of them and then you just have them up at the front desk. And then if you go up, they just will put it on your ledger. You know, you have to pay for the book, but you don't have to then go get it. You can just go to the front desk and say, hey, can I get one of the book of the month things? So anyway, so decide what books you want to read, what audio things you want to listen to. So I already told you guys, I've given you a number of books over the last couple
Yeah.
days. I've also started, I mentioned Jim Rohn, listen to some of Jim Rohn stuff. All right, next, events and trainings I will attend. So just, you know, we are gonna be participating in some of the ESS stuff, the elevates. Are you gonna attend that? One of the other things that, as a company, we are a pro Tony Robbins. So are you wanting to go to a Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, any of those? Have you guys ever done that?
Follow on social media.
Yeah, you should go do it. It's cool. Unleash the Power Within's awesome. Like I'm a fire walker. I walked on the fire. Like he does that. Have you seen that before? That he does? Yeah. So at the end of, I can't remember if it was the first day or the second day. I think it's the first day. The end of the first day, like everybody goes out and you walk across this thing of fire. And I was like, yeah, I don't really, like I was trying to act like I was too, like, I'm like, I don't really care about that. Inside I was like, I'm not doing that. But I had somebody, well, because mostly I had heard when he does that, like there's 10,000 people at these events. And I had heard that sometimes you have to wait in line for like 2 hours to go and walk across the fire. And I was like, I'm spending, yeah, I'm like, I'm not doing 2 hours to do that. So somebody went and found, I was like the 5th person to go across it. And I was like, I'll do that. Anyways, Tony Robbins will be a good one. All right, keep going here. So company meetings and training. So I will attend morning ascent Blake times per month or per week. So how many times are you gonna go? I would say you should be trying to do 2 or 3 times per week in terms of attending morning ascent, okay? And then I will attend the summit blank times per year or quarter or whatever, just decide. We offer those 10 times a year. We typically don't do one in July and we don't do them in December, but outside of that, we'll typically do it. I will attend the base camp. So we're kind of getting those going again. So the last 2 weeks, we've had base camp for the office here. What is Centerville doing? Do you know? See, I don't know if Katie has started. Are you in Centerville or are you here?
No, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
Heidi?
I'm
Yeah.
here.
Oh, are you? Okay, I
Yeah.
thought for some reason I was thinking you were in Centerville. Okay, so I'm not sure what anybody Orem, maybe online, but I'm not sure if what Jason probably has started or getting started, but I'll attend base camp. Typically, it's going to be every Wednesday, except for on the weeks that we have summit. On a week we have summit, we don't do a base camp. Okay, I will attend the C21 systems training, which essentially just if you come to this, you'll get it. So and complete the new agent training by whenever. Okay, visualize, meditate. You can go through and fill that out. You'll probably don't need my input on that. Skill sets. So we talked on Tuesday about the 12 skills. I asked you guys to rank yourself. So here's where now you're going to say, I will role play blank times per week. So how often are you going to role play? So why are you smiling?
Because Rick always gives me crap about it. He's like, why didn't you go to role play? I was like, "God."
I know. So decide how many times, and you don't have to go every day, but decide you'll do it 1 a week, 2 a week, 4 a week, I don't know. So role play partners will be, identify some people, find some people that you can role play with and then write them down as role play partners. I will chant and memorize the following scripts and then how long, how often, whatever, you'll write them out. Coached by, which every one of you should have a coach. If you don't know who it is, go to one of the managers at the office and say, who's my coach? And they'll help you figure it out. Because you should
And
be,
who's your manager? Like,
so for you then Ruby or Rick, yeah.
and so I find out from my
It
coaches.
just, yeah, and it's either Ruby or Rick. I mean,
Oh, our coach, yeah, mine's Ruby.
yeah. And then just make sure you're scheduling. So I will be coached by that person and how often, you know? How
She
often?
tries to, we try to see each other a week, every week.
Good.
Doesn't always happen that way.
Perfect. Yeah, and it's not going to, but if you just said, I'll be coached by Ruby each week, that's great. All right, what specific skills will you master this year? So we gave you the 12 skills, write down the ones you're gonna master. Number 10, accountability. I will sign an accountability contract with each you know, so who are you gonna sign it with and how often? Like a lot of times, ultimately, I would say with your coach, do an accountability contract every month. Do some type of a, hey, here's what I'm gonna do this month, and here's what the accountability contract's gonna be. And you, whatever it is, I'll pay you money, or I'll wash your car, or I'll eat cat food, like whatever you want. What I-
You're doing some weird stuff, Russ.
I know.
And make each other
I do have a cat, but he eats our food.
Yeah, you know, well, but see, do you want to eat your cat's food?
No, I
So then
didn't.
that's why you put it down. If I don't do this, I will, you know, whatever. All right, I'll track my numbers, and then it does, has in there the numbers you want to track. And additional accountability partners to help you achieve your goals, you can put down what systems or strategies. So I can talk to you guys on Tuesday about the systems, and about Zap, Business Builder, Golden Ruler, Unique Property Websites, Preferred Client Club, like which of those are you going to learn? And then the final piece on this that we'll end on today is challenges and solutions. So here's the thing. For each of you, you should be identifying, we were just talking about you, Ruby.
You were?
She's like, oh, I'm coming in then.
Hopefully just good things. You guys tell me
Yeah.
otherwise, okay?
The best thing.
Yeah, I was-
This is Andrew. He's just taking that. I wanted
How you doing?
to show you where you are.
Okay, cool. So challenges and solutions. So as you look at this goal that you've set, what challenges do you foresee yourself having to achieving it? That's what this piece is. What is going to hold you back right off the top of your like, and you should have some things. Because here's the point. If it was easy to like, so we'll go with Alex's number between 80 and 90,000 that he was going to be on his goal. If that was easy, he would have already done it. So there's going to be challenges in the way of him getting there. So what does that need to look like? What do you have to do to overcome? So what are the challenges? So can I pick on you for a minute? So what do you see? Just give me one. What do you see being a challenge to you getting to the 80 or 90,000?
Mindset.
Miriam's gonna help you. His mindset sucks.
Hey, we
I
talked
feel
about
like
it
the
once.
thing that I've struggled with personally so far is prospect.
Okay, so good. So then that's what you'd write down. So what part of process? Just doing it?
Cause I can call, but then it's like a lot of no's or just trying to set that appointment.
Okay, so the challenge is setting an appointment.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then what you're gonna write down is setting appointments. So what's the solution?
Set the appointment.
Okay, but it's okay, but if, again, this is where I go to, if it was that easy, you would have already done it. So what really is, what do you need to do to get good at setting the appointments?
Practice role play.
Okay, so then I would just say, okay, setting appointments. So the solution is I'm gonna role play how often and blah, 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 whatever it is. That makes sense? So ultimately, and you don't have to fill out all of these, but just start looking at what are gonna be the things that I foresee being a problem, challenge to me getting to my goal. And then what's my solution to overcome? So that's the idea of that. All right, we good? Everybody know what they need to do? Okay. So for Tuesday's class is gonna be all about lead generation. So if you're struggling with the setting appointments, come to that class again, even though I think you probably already done it, but I don't know if you have, but come to again, if, like, honestly, there are some of the classes that I would say you should come multiple of times to. SOI is one I think you should come every time to SOI until you get it working. The lead generation, I think would be a good one to attend every time until you're getting good at setting appointments. Needs analysis is one I would say come to every time until you're good at presenting at appointments. So anyway, so next Tuesday is going to be lead generation. We're going to talk all about setting appointments and how to do all that. So, sound good?
Yes. And this was like the last day of the 12-hour, right? Or-
No, this wasn't part. No, we're
Oh,
done. We
was-
finished.
oh,
When
okay.
Jason did the Jeopardy game, that was the last of the 12-hour.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I probably shouldn't say that. No, it's still keeps people coming. Right. All right, cool. Thank you guys. Thanks Zoom. You guys have been awesome. So see you on.
Oh, thanks,
Tuesday.
Russ. You're awesome too, man.
There we go. Finally.
What's your plan for today, Alex? You wanna go down, we can make a calendar?